I may do a super quick review then of the bill. Yeah. Actually, tell you what, while you guys are doing that, I'm gonna do a super quick review for the recording. If I can just show it on the computer screen, not up there on the like on the screen. All right, so I forgot to start recording, so I am going to do a super quick review of our bell work we just did. We said an equation is a rule that says the left side has to equal the right side. The value of the left has to equal the right side. That's what allows us to solve. That's kind of where Mr. Gill's #1 rule comes from. If we have to keep the equation in balance, if we have to keep the left side equal to the right side, that means whatever I do to one side, I have to do the exact same thing to the other side. Mr. Gill's #1 rule. So for number 2, what are two things? Oh, so we said like terms have to have the same variable and the same exponent. And in this class, we're not really going to have an exponent other than a 1. So that's not really going to come into play. So basically, if you have the same letter, you can combine terms. If you don't have a letter at all, like just a 1 and a 5, then you can just combine those. You'll see examples of that when we work out problems. So, oh, we didn't really do number 3. I totally didn't do number 3. We'll save that for word problem. Hopefully you try to do it though. So I'm going to skip over that. So I just solved this problem out. We said that 6a is really like having 6 A's added together. So to that, I'm going to, and you can think of that as literally looking in your hand and visualizing 6 A's. We're then going to add to these 6 A's, we're going to add 5 more A's. So 5a is just like having 5 A's. So if I had 6 A's in my hand, if I added 5 A's to that, I would get 11a. On the right side, we just bring down the -11. This was something different. We don't want that. And then we said, well, 11a is really 11 times a. So if we're solving, we're trying to get the variable by itself. So getting the variable by itself means we have to do the opposite math. Always think about opposite math. So 11a, 11 times a divided by 11, we'll get rid of the 11. So the 11 goes away. If, though, we divide by 11 here, we have to divide by 11 here. That's Mr. Gill's #1 rule. Whatever you do on one side, you do on the other. So the rules of multiplication and division, a negative divided by a positive is a negative. So my final answer, so a is all by itself now. Again, that's what solving means, get it by itself. So a equals -1. And since I didn't record that one, I'll do one more and record it. And now you're caught up. I'm gonna go ahead and do number 2 real quick since I forgot to be, or I wasn't recording when I did that one. So hopefully you have that one written down because I'm gonna get rid of it. And you should have the problem circled. Again, if you didn't circle those, circle them real quick. 2, 4, 7, 8, 9. Get rid of it. I'm gonna erase this whole screen, which is typically what I'll do since I'm using the book some now more than I did last year, way more than I did last year. I a lot of times won't have a whole presentation. I'll just use the same screen to show some examples, but we'll mainly be working the examples from the book pages. Today I had a handout for you, so we're not using the book, but that will probably be part of your retake process, will be to tear the book pages out and go through the examples in the book if you need to do the retake. Oh, I didn't talk about that. So retakes, we're going to start that process Friday. I actually have the sheet already ready now. So there's a sheet you have to fill out, and there's some checklist items you have to do. One of them will be you have to do all the practice problems you were supposed to do, and you'll have to show me those practice problems. One of them will be that you have to go to tutoring for at least one session and get somebody to sign off that you were there. And you can do that with me if you can come in second lunch. That would be fine. Let's see what else is on there. Oh, you have to do test corrections, which we're actually going to do some of those in here on Friday. I'm going to hand out tests, and I'm going to give you 15 minutes to do some corrections in groups. I'm going to try to put one person in each group that had a pretty decent grade, and that way they should have all the correct answers and should know what they were doing in order to get that good grade. So they can kind of help everybody else get their corrections done. And that'll
take care of one of those checklist things you have to get done before a retake. And what else was there? There's a couple of questions you have to ask about like how you feel about the topic. Like, do you feel like you're at a 4, meaning that's the highest? Do you feel like you're at a 3 and a 2? And I think it asks you what you did to prepare. There's one more thing you have to get done. I can't remember what it was. Test corrections, practice problems, tutoring. Maybe that's just it. Yeah, maybe that's true. All right, so let's do number 4 together. Actually, do I have anybody that likes coming up the board and like working problems out? That? I mean, normally there's always somebody that loves coming up and doing it on the board. I've had that every single year. Although I will say my first and second periods normally have been the classes that were less interactive because it's early. But yeah, and almost even then though, I still had 1 or 2 kids that like coming up in the board and doing it. I definitely had one last year in second period. Oh, you know what? I didn't have first period last year. That was my planning period. But I had a girl in second period that loved coming up to the board and doing the problem. And normally I've got 1 or 2. The later in the day, I always have kids that like doing it. All right, so number 2 is, I'm not going to force you to do it, but if you ever want to do it, like when you get more comfortable, if you feel like you know what you're doing, I love when kids come up and do that. I'm not going to force kids to do it. Some teachers probably. If you're not comfortable, I'm not going to force you to do it. I am going to ask questions about it though. All right, so very similar problem, almost. Oh, I should have done one where they were on the other side. Oh, well. Maybe I'll do it. Do we have like terms on the left side? Yes, absolutely. Like if you weren't sure about that, then you need to do a lot more practice problems. I mean, like if the understanding isn't there, then you may be at the point where you just got to start memorizing stuff if you don't understand what like terms are. But if I have the same letter or no letter at all, don't forget that one. We haven't gotten to one of those yet, but we will after we do this one or maybe the next one. Those are like terms. I can combine those. Now, when you have a negative, you can't really say it's like 6 ends now because you have the negative piece, and that would be 6 positive ends. But you could say this, it's like having 6 negative ends. So there are 6 of them. We're just kind of thinking of the n as being in front of the 6, which you would never write it like that, but mathematically that's still correct. You just would always write the number first. So now I'm going to take that and I'm going to subtract away 2 more ends. So we said there are no, and if you don't remember this, you need to write this down. There are no rules for negatives when we're adding and subtracting. You cannot use that stuff. Way too many kids are using that. That doesn't apply. That's multiplication and division. We are subtracting. No. But I appreciate you saying that. So let's talk about that. Because I guarantee you were not the only one who did that. Why is it not that? So now that you know it's not that, walk me through the logic behind tell me what I tell you when I use negative numbers. What do I use? Money and debt and that kind of stuff. So what does -6 represent? So if you're negative though, what's that mean? So you are in debt. And again, you can still think of it as ends. Don't get freaked out by the fact that it's a variable. And again, I appreciate you giving me an answer on that. I wasn't trying to like, and don't laugh. Yes, I did just hear you say sorry. That says a lot about you. You said because if anybody in here is willing to say something, I should never hear anybody make fun of it. Like that's, as you know, how many people just wanted to come up and work a problem out? That many. So if somebody's willing to give me an answer, they're putting themselves out there. You know how that feels. Put yourself out there. Although some of you may not know how to do this because you don't know how to do this. But yeah, we need to be willing to do that and not feel like somebody's going to make fun of us if we didn't know the answer. That's the only way you can get better at anything. So if I have all of these negative ends. Again, I can think of it as 6 negative ends. I'm in debt 6 ends. I owe somebody 6 ends. Question? Let me finish this real quick. So if I am in debt, I'm still in debt. It's still a negative number. Logan. So if I owe you 6 ends, negative means you are in debt. And then if you're subtracting away 2 more ends, just think of it as that's the way you pay somebody with ends. If that doesn't make sense, I get it, but you could think of it as dollars, I guess. If you're in debt and N just stands for dollars, if you're in debt $6 and now somebody is trying to take 2 more dollars away from you, you're more in debt. You owe them even more money now. So you would be at -8. So when you are using positive and negative numbers, you've got to have some kind of a concept of how to do that, because you will not get a calculator on the. See, I don't think there's 2 days of FSA anymore. They changed it. So I think like there's a first session that you don't get the calculator for. And it's got this is the kind of stuff you'll do, solving equations. And then you'll get it for the second session, which will be other type of stuff. So again, -6 subtract 2 would be -8n. I'm more negative. That's the key. I became more negative. I was already negative. Then I tried to take more away from that, and I became more negative. Do not forget the n. So that's the next thing kids forget is the variable. Then they're left with -8 = 16, and they have no idea what to do. What's the last step? If I have -8n, what's that mean? Daniel, you came in late, and you don't even have anything else. So you need to grab that, and you need to get a pencil out, bud. What does -8n mean? Daniel, what does -8n mean? I'm not going to move on. Shrug your shoulders. There's 4 math operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. It's one of those 4. What does it mean? -8n. Yeah, 1 in 4 chance. Kind of like actually the PSAT or like 1 in 4 chance. 1 in 4 chance. So like, yeah, it's not an open-ended question. So you can guess 1 of 4 things. Not going to move on because you shrug your shoulders. It's not this kind of question or this class. You've got to interact. So I know where you're at, basically. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I said this. If you interact, and let's say like, I feel like you're getting it when we interact and you're answering questions, even if I have to help you a little bit with the questions, I can use that when I grade your test. So one student might have the exact same work and the exact same answers, or have missed the same answers as another student. But if this other student was answering questions and kind of showing me that they understood it when we did the classwork part, they get a better grade. So it's not about percentages anymore and how many you missed out of the total. It's about how well you understand it. So showing me you understand it in class can help your test grade if you're not great at tests. So again, it's either addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. Daniel, big yes. So division would look like this. We would have a fraction, some kind of a fraction. Like that's how we show division. So we don't have a fraction here, right? And let me be clear. I'm asking you what this means, not what we do. So this is not division because it would have looked like a fraction. So again, if it doesn't look like a fraction, it can't be division. So take another guess. Now you're down to addition, subtraction, multiplication. Oh, perfect. And you might have been telling me what you do next, which that would have been correct if you said division. So this is multiplication. That means I do the opposite, which is division. So now again, I'm doing division. So these rules do apply. Multiplication and the division rules. So I have a what? Positive divided by a negative. That's the middle one. So my final answer is negative. I got the n all by itself, which is the whole definition of what solving means, is just get the variable by itself. That's your answer for number 2. So now I will give you another, how are we on time? I'm going to give you another 4 or 5 minutes to do the rest of those problems. So I forget what the numbers were, but it was the ones that you should have circled a minute ago. I don't have them written up. If you don't know what they are, I guess I can have somebody say them out. So go ahead, keep working on those problems. And then we'll do it, we'll take like the next step in them. You still have to trade your phone out though, girl. Good try. Good try. Yeah, I love when kids try to get away. Ooh. Today's definitely a good day for you. My planning period is next period and I have a phone call.
I got a question.
Somebody wants to talk to me about their daughter.
Oh.
Yeah. Work right now, so I'm letting you know that, so you're on point. I can say now, truthfully, oh yeah, she worked really hard.
Mr. Gill. I got a question. You think I'll make her second lunch?
Yeah, if you need to come in here ever for tutoring and you have second lunch, I do want you to tell me ahead of time, because sometimes I have to go do copies or something, but I'm always in here. I don't go eat lunch or anything. Sometimes the teachers are right next door and I'll walk in there for a minute, and hang out, but normally I just stay in here and work. Actually, I'm not gonna say it. Yeah, if you have questions, raise your hand. I don't care if you work together. But remember, you are ultimately the one that has to do the quizzes, so don't sit there and just let somebody do the whole problem. Yeah, it's a weird answer kind of, but that's zero. There's not, yeah, zero is always just. Odds are pretty good. It came out. So if this is a negative 14. Yeah. So if this is negative 14, you're in debt 14. Negative. Yes, and just take it as you're in debt 14 dollars. Then I give you 14. It's like you're in debt 14, but I'm like, hey, I hate that you're in debt. Here's 14. I'm better than else. I just gave you the money you need to pay your debt. You to figure out. So you were in debt, you owed money, right? I give you exactly the amount you need to pay your debt. So you pay all your debt. How many debts you got that, right? So what number is?
Yeah.
That's why I say when kids get zero.
Big deal. I got a question.
Yeah, zero is a zero in. Now, the answer then. The answer is weird. We haven't even covered that yet. But you're gonna get zeros into the negative. And that's a very special situation, which I'll do that one next. Talk about that. So for now, just leave it at zero equals negative. We haven't even talked about that yet.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, compare your answers. Like I said, get help, work with each other. I'll walk around for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll go to the next level. If you knew your algorithm, you know exactly how to do it. Of course. It depends on how you think. But typically, a car, depending on what car, I guess now.
Yeah, 42,000.
Oh, that probably gets pretty good gas mileage. So you could probably go, how much money? $9. $9 is about 2.5 gallons. You could go probably in that car, maybe 40 gallons or 40 miles per gallon. You could go almost 100 miles. In that car. Now, I drive a truck. I can.
Oh, yeah, yours.
My truck probably only gets between 20 and 25 miles, but I can still get 60, 70. I don't remember when you were not here. Started doing two separate.
Yes.
We did.
Because we did 11, we did 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18, 20. Those were probably the ones.
Yeah, I think you're here, so you know what to do. The bread. This is it. What do you do? So do you remember, or just either this year or last year, do you remember? I cannot combine this 3x with that same. The whole lesson I just did, these are not like terms. This has an x, this doesn't. I can't do anything in the middle.
Yeah.
Do you remember doing something like this in this year or last year? Okay, so do you know what it means? We can't combine these, but because we know this equals times whatever is in parentheses, we just take the three of you multiply times each of them. I want you to try to do that step on your own.
Like that or it's just okay, I got that. Okay, so it's literally 21, but you have to.
You use your phone, or if he does this stuff, camera.
And then you just do.
She said most kids, and you don't have to do anything after school during school, unless you want to stay after, because they do have some stuff that they can do after school. Like if they're in it, but if you can't stay after, it's not impossible, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Just do something.
That's what would be nice. Yeah.
Okay, so you did this in here. Yes.
I do. It's another book.
Do you feel comfortable with everything that I went over?
The other one's.
Really? I say you did well on that.
Some of these are like, cheesecake, like.
I think it's nice to be happy.
Why is that on?
Yeah, it's there.
This one you did the second.
It's without one.
I do still want to talk to you about why you're out. You know that, I hope, right? That's just like. My favorite person in my life is whether you're lying. You can make good choices. But you gotta get something out. You got it right in front of you. So again, so you go back to one. Pretty quick, I think. You getting it? So in debt, you're getting negative. You know what debt means? Like you're owing something, like you're in debt. So you owe me $10. Just think of the P as $, negative $10. You're in debt $10. Somebody got yelled. Trade your phone number. So he's all he happens to have right now is $9. Hey, I'm sorry you owe Mr. Gill money. Here's $9. That's added. He just gave to you, added to you. So you still owe one to me. So what was your final answer? You owe me. And then don't forget the very. That's how you do anything with positive, or any addition of positive and negative. Just think about that kind of concept. All right? Let's see. But you gotta wake up.
Yeah, bud, you want some pasta?
2, 4, 7, 8.
How would you get rid of this? This is still negative 1 times P. It's like you're paying one.
Yes.
It is still multiplication.
No, it's.
Even though it's weird, it's like negative 1, you don't see that a lot. You still just divide by, now you divide by this negative 1.
So I'm not gonna be surprised.
There's phones out. I don't want to see any phones out. Yes, you can trace. Oh, actually, not, you know. If I'm not paying attention, just. Fade your phone out. My dad loves it. He is all about.
Especially if no one else is saying.
I got 3, she got 0. Yeah.
Really, that's surprising. Oh, from the, that's just from the other day. All right, well, then let's go. Let's go. Ooh, so this is a negative. And no, positive. So you are negative. Then somebody gives you 9, they're adding 9 to you. Now you say me 9, and you're not sending them. Right? So be careful on your positives and negatives. It doesn't have anything to do with the rules, like I said, that's only multiplication division. But you're pretty good with a step, you just gotta be careful on that. And the hint is that this doesn't come out as an even. That's kind of the hint. There. Buddy, bring one buttons. You too, I think, are the only two pieces out of all of them. The only other. Well, it's always cold, but I don't think kids like want to get up and walk over. Either they're lazy or they just don't want to like be out. That's what it is. They don't want to. I'm not going to get up and do that in front of us. Once people do it for a little while, then other kids start doing it. I used to have more blankets. I'll bring some more in. Because it does get really cold, especially later in the day, actually. Yeah. Oh, actually, let me check your code in there. Yeah, I'm making my rounds, so I'm gonna check. Oh, come on, bud. You gotta do something. I can't, you do something and I'll come and check it. I'm not gonna sit there and do your problem first. If you have a blank paper, I'm not gonna sit there.
Number 4, it's the easiest one.
Yeah, there's one that's all addition, I think. I'd start with that.
Yeah. So easy.
Yeah, wait, no, number 4 is not easy.
Yeah, it is.
Try, no, it's not as easy. Try number 9. 9, there's no subtraction. There's no- Number 9 is actually just like. Negative 1, so what's the math? Negative 1 imputes the math. So. Divide by negative. That's an issue, it's a negative. But that's not because then you do less than t, right? So you divide by negative 1 here, you're just left with t. But then on the other side, it's negative. Whatever you do on one side, you gotta do the other side. Who's Alan, was it you? Yeah, you. Alright. So you can grab the task from him and just. Alright, so let's see this row. Are you guys, I saw you working together a little bit, right? Okay. I get a lot of important. Now, we don't divide by 12. Divide by 12. No, you divide by negative. Remember, we're getting the variable by itself, so that's what we divide. But the steps look good, just be careful. Yeah, all of them look good.
Yes. Wait, one more on number
1 plus 1 plus 1. Yeah, if you're getting nice round answers, the only thing that might be on sometimes positive and negatives. But if your answers are coming out nice round, man.
1, 2, 4, 11. Easy.
Normally kids would just like stand there forever and wait for me to get out of the way, but not you, boy. That's funny. Yeah, you guys can compare answers, these all look good, so I said if you want to kind of go through the ones you've done, as you get done. Sounds really good. I'm gonna do probably 1 more minute, we'll do the next type. Yes. Number 7 is what I'm gonna do, and it's a super weird answer, believe it or not.
Isn't it up there?
Not bad. You get that on one side, But if you'll notice, the variable actually goes away on the side. It's just the number 0 on the right. No variable in it. Because we combined the two variables and they went to 0, like actually the number 0. So you get a number on the right and a number on the left, no variables anywhere left. And that means a specific. I'll tell you what that means. So you did the same thing as Alyssa there. I'm gonna start explaining you what happened there. You're forgetting the variable. Okay, so when you combine the number part, that is what you do, but don't forget, if we're starting with variables, you're actually variables here. So you're -1 is actually variable. That's pretty good. A good start. Now, do you guys? So this is close. I'm gonna go over this, although this is actually just good as 0 here. So this would be -1. So we have -10. Okay, so think about money. -10 is just 1. If you're negative money, what? You're in debt. So you're in debt. You owe me to. Kristen, if she gives you $9 and you give that to me, how in debt are you now?
Is that 19 or 12?
But you feel pretty good about the answer? Wrong. Not really wrong. You don't owe me much, right? You owe me 10. You gave me 9, so you paid me 9, you're still in debt 1. So this would be -1. That's how you add and have positive. So you take it out of that type of situation. But don't forget, these are really variable. This is 10 -p's, 9. So you have to make sure that the p is here. The only way to get rid of the variable is actually what happens here. Yes, -14. And now Christine gives you 14 when you're in debt. No, you just paid off all your debt. No, you don't have any money. You're not above 0. You're right at 0. This right side goes to 0. You add those two things together, cancel each other out. Now you have a 0 on the right, no variable really. You have a 0 b, but 0 times anything, 0. 0 on the right and -0 on the left. So that's kind of a weird one. I'm gonna go over that one in a second. Okay, so. I want to look at this one. This is one we should be able to. So. I'm coming to you. Working on. Did you do number 9?
Because they cut your.
Okay, number 9 is one that everybody I goes kind of.
Why are you laughing?
Yeah. You can always move around. I said that. I guess I didn't say that you could move around, but I said you could work together. But again, when you're moving around, that means I will be checking more often. to Make sure that you're. So, what's the. So they have, it has the same letter, right? Same letter and then you just add them together. So, where do I have the same letter? than that?
That makes sense.
So if they're on the same.
Now I
line,
know what you're talking
I
about.
don't like it.
Now I know he does acted.
So I don't have any negative. Everything's positive. So that means literally, I can think about having, like, just think about the letter M in your hand 8 times. You got 8 M's in your hand. I'm then adding to what you have in your hand, I'm adding 13. How many? Well, I've got calculators, so I'll let you think about it. Dude, wow, man. No, not the game, but you're great.
Yeah, you.
So try that one. Didn't take long.
Now, no, you mean.
So-
Traded, she said.
So how do you do that? How do you have, you have 8 M's, you have 13 M's. How are you gonna do that when it comes to quiz? Well, I've got. So how are you gonna do that? What's your process? How are you gonna get the answer? Because you haven't got the answer. So you can use fingers and toes. You're gonna go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Put it right down. Your mom is all about your grades, so. She's. Everybody. Good, that's the way every parent. Yeah, I mean, that's, this is one of them.
That was my grandma's.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
No, she just asked me like how you were doing. You may have written it eventually, but when I came over initially, you're done. Oh, no, I didn't.
No problem. If you have, right, they get plus some times.
Yeah.
You have to find it.
I'm telling you that.
Class stuff.
Yeah. Talk about it. Like, being happy, they do that. You'll be in good shape. Anytime you can do that, absolutely. You would be. So come in. So you write 21, so don't forget, so you write 21. So when you write 21, you write that down.
Yeah.
Then what goes on the, so that's one side of the equation. Side of the equation. You still have to have something like an equal sign and something. You didn't do anything left. You need to finish that up. And what I did. Number 1 here. But you think about that. I'm coming back over to see how. So all of them are really racist things. The only difference is someone is negative, so it's find the variable. You just have so if you haven't checked, September is up for birthdays. There's a dry erase marker back there, so if you're a September birthday and you want to get your little snack on your birthday, put your name up.
That's somebody.
If you don't want to do that, you'll still get the snack. You just, if you're like shy about doing something.
Which one of them are birthday September 9th?
What happened to your t-shirt?
Yeah, I have one. Talk to you. Yeah, I moved it. I don't know, but I moved it to something else.
Not today, it was Saturday.
Perfect. Oh, I'm gonna go over 7 in a minute. That's a weird one.
Oh, yeah.
This answer to this.
I really want to.
I was wrong.
Oh, my mom.
Like, try it out. No, it's just a weird situation. Like, I don't expect anybody to get it. Because the steps are good, but what the final answer means is something that they do. So I'm gonna go over that right now.
Yeah.
All right, so really quickly, everybody stop working on what you're doing. I gotta show you something that's a little weird on my side. I don't do the little, have you ever had the math teachers that go, give me 5?
Oh.
Yeah, make 5. Make 5, yeah. I don't do that. I might have done it in middle school. I think, when I told them. All right, so everybody look at number 7. Number 7 is weird, not because the steps are any different. You do the same thing, but you get a really weird answer, and it means something very specific. I don't spend a lot of time on exception, and this is an exception. But I guarantee you the district will spend time on exceptions. They want to know that you understand, even though they're the things that almost never happen. They want to know you understand those exceptions. So I'm going to do it quickly just so you've seen it, and then I'll talk about what the other exception is. I'll have to probably create a problem for that, but you might see one like that also. So the problem is -10, again, number 7 equals -14v plus 14v. So we still do the same process. We say, okay, do I have any like terms on the same side that I can combine? Do I? Yeah, absolutely. I got V's, right? Same letter. Or if it would have been numbers without variables, then I could have combined those. This is the weird thing that happens. If I combine those, what do I get? I'm in debt 14, somebody gives me $14. So where am I at? 0. I'm at 0, right? I'm not in debt. I don't have any money, so I'm not positive, but I'm not in debt anymore. I'm at 0. So I get 0V right there. What's 0 times any number? What's 0 times 1?
0.
What's 0 times 4?
0.
What's 0 times a million?
0.
So what's 0 times V?
0.
Still 0. I don't care what number this is. And it is a missing number, but it doesn't even matter what number it is. 0 times any number is going to wind up being 0. So I can go ahead and write 0 there. So my variables went away. They're gone. Again, it's a weird exception situation, and it means something very specific. Is that true, by the way? Does -10 equal 0? Absolutely not. They're not the same number. The only way something can equal, like if it's just two numbers, it's got to be the same number. The only number that equals itself is that same number. Alan's sneaking his phone. So, if you get something like this at the end of a problem, and you have a number on one side and a different, no variables. Variables are all gone. It means there's no solution. There is no number that I can plug in for V that will make the right side equal the left side. And if you think about it, that's true, because anytime I plug a number in here, I'm going to have to plug the same number in there. That's how a variable works. So I'm just going to get opposite numbers every time. So they're always going to cancel out and go to 0. So there's no number I can plug in. This side is always going to be 0. And this side is -10. So that's never going to equal each other. If you're not completely following that, just try to remember, if you get, again, variables are gone. If you get a number over here and then a different number over here, there's no solution. Now there's another situation that's like this. How am I going to do this one? So let's change this side of the problem. -6 plus 14. I don't really need 14. I'm changing it from the problem in your on your sheet. So we'll just say plus 2V, subtract 4, and then subtract 2V. All right, so now I have that problem. Do I have any like terms on the right? Yeah, I do, right? Same letter, or no letter at all. So I have these, right? What do I get when I combine those? Positive 2V, subtract 2V. I get 0 again, right? 0V, or this time I'm just going to write 0. So those two really just cancel out and go to 0. What do I get when I combine? Oh, do I have any more like terms? There's no, did you say yes or X? Yes? What? Yeah, numbers are like terms, remember? So I'll underline them twice. They don't have variables, but that's fine. We said same variable really means no variables. So they don't have variables, so I can combine those. -6 means I'm in debt 6. Then I become more in debt because somebody's taking more money from me if they're subtracting 4. So I get -10 plus 0. Well, what's -10 plus 0? Hopefully you know that's just -10. So now I solve it. Again, variables are gone. No variables. but I have the same number on both sides. So that's another unique situation. And that means, and this is a word that you may not remember, hopefully you've heard it before. If you get that situation, there is an infinite number of solutions. That means any number you plug in basically will work. You can pick any number in the world. And you can pick negative 372 divided by 42. It'll work. So if you get those two weird situations, and you will get those, they always do that in the worksheets, and I always forget that they're on there. Don't worry too much about them. Your steps are probably correct, but the true answer to those is either no solution if you have different numbers, or infinite solutions if you have the same. So, okay, go ahead. Oh, actually, let's go ahead and do the next type of problem. And I'm going to make a pretty big jump here. We're actually skipping the very next level of difficulty and going all the way to the kind of the highest level of difficulty. Oh, I forgot to tell you also. Well, all right, let me do this problem first, and then I'll show you. So look at the second page. Second page. I'm going all the way up to one that has parentheses and variables on both sides and all kinds of stuff. Number 23. And that's really the oh, actually, no, number 20 is kind of like that too. Number 20 has that much stuff going on. So number 23, 8, and then 1 plus 5x, and then plus 5 equals 13 plus 5x. I'll tell you right now, if you can do this one already, you're pretty much set on equations. It doesn't get any harder than this. So the fact that you may struggle with this, don't freak out. This is as hard as it gets. I'm just skipping into it because we're a little behind on time. And this will, everything that we do in this covers everything that you have to do in equations pretty much. So we might as well just do this, and then I can show you the different pieces as we go through this harder problem. What's the first thing I need to do? You should know this. So I'll tell you what you should know and you shouldn't. This. So we look at order of operations, which starts with what? Parentheses, right? PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We start with parentheses. What can I do inside the parentheses? What can I do in there? Alyssa, what can I do? What can I do? Can I? What's my number? What did I say? Never, ever, 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 ever try. Are those like terms? Do they have the same letter? So we can't, remember? So that was a little bit of a trick question, because when I tell you to do something, you kids think you can. A lot of times you won't be able to. I can't do anything with this. Remember, you can never combine a term with a variable and a term without a variable. So again, trick question. So I can't do anything in there. But what Kaylee just said, oh, what is going on between the what's in parentheses, so basically what's in the parentheses, and that 8? Kitana, what's going on? What's the math going on between that 8 and what's in parentheses? Right, if we don't see a symbol, and I'll rewrite it just to show it, that means it's really 8 times 1 plus 5x. So that's really what we're doing, 8 times what's in parentheses. But we just said we can't combine these, so I can't take 8 and multiply it times whatever that is. I have to multiply the 8 times both pieces of it. That's why we draw those little lines in. It means take the 8 and multiply it times the 1, and then take the 8 and multiply it times the 5. I'm going to do that sort of in a, gosh, I don't really have room. All right, we'll make room. There. I'm going to do that in a separate part of my paper. I didn't tell you guys to do that before, and a lot of people are doing it in the problem, and it's becoming really confusing. So I'm going to say, okay, well, I know this is what I have to do. 8 times 5x. So what's 8 times 1? And it's positive 8. I want to make sure I have that. 8 times 5x. Don't forget the x. A lot of people are forgetting the variable when they do some of the math. So now that I've figured out what just this piece is, I take my two answers and I write those as a new problem. So I bring down the 8, I say plus 40x because it was a positive 40x. And then now I just write the rest of the problem that I didn't really touch yet. So I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. This is when we get to complex problems, this is the next big mistake. And this is definitely tricky. Do I have any like terms? What? Boy, I'm so glad you picked those, Logan. Because there's a problem. Those are technically like terms. They have an accent. We said anything with same variable is a like term. I cannot combine those the way that we're used to. I can't just say, oh, well, that's plus 40x and that's plus 5x. So I gotta make that 45x. I'm going to give you kind of hopefully an intuitive way to think of this. And I don't even know if this is right to tell you the truth, but which side would I put that on? Because I got 1x on the right, 1x on the left. So if I combine them into 45x, how would I know which side they go on? I got x's on both sides. You can't do it because you don't know which side it is. That's not the real reason, but that's what I want you to think. That's how you can remember that you can't do that. I cannot just say 45x goes on the right. I can't just pick the left side. I have them on both sides. What you need to think about is getting rid of the variables on one side. We want to do what? What's our goal when we're solving? We want to get the variable by itself, right? How can we get it by itself if we got variables on both sides? We need to have all the variables on one side. So we need to get rid of, that's what I want you to think of. Get rid of the variables on the right. We want to get rid of that 5x. How do we get rid of that? If you have 5x's, how would I get rid of them? I literally think if you have 5x's, how would I get rid of them? I'd subtract them I'd take them from you, right? If you have them and I take them from you, they're gone. So we're going to get rid of 5x. I mean, you could write it out to the right if you wanted to subtract 5x here. Actually, I am going to write it there. That'll save me room. But that's how now if that would have been negative 5x, subtract 5x, we would do the opposite of that. Remember, you always are doing opposite. When you're solving an equation, you're getting the variable by itself, but you're doing that by doing opposite math. Well, that was plus 5x, so we subtracted 5x. If it would have been subtract 5x, we would have added 5x. But what's my number one rule? So if I did that on the right side, if I subtracted 5x, now I come, and again, I'll subtract this one underneath, I guess, because I don't really have room to do it. I could have squeezed it in. That's how you combine them. You can't just add them together when they're on opposite sides or do whatever math. You've got to think about getting rid of them on this side. And again, this is the biggest leap that you're going to make in the more difficult equations is how to get rid of variables that are on both sides, or how to combine them, I guess. Now I've done the same thing on both sides. So let me also say this. If I just combined 5x and if I just added them together and I put 45 on the right, like if I put 45x over here, isn't that the same thing as saying I added 5x over here? But if I added 5x over here, what do I have to do on the right? I'd have to add 5x on the right. Well, that would give me 10x and it wouldn't get rid of it. So that's the real math way you would think about it. But if you just think, well, wait a minute, I have variables on both sides. I can't just combine them because I wouldn't know where to put the answer. If that's a more intuitive way for you to think about it. Or if you just remember, I can only combine things that are on the same side. Somehow, though, you have to realize how to combine those things. And practice is the best way. So now I have 8 plus, that's 35x, because I had 40 of them and I subtracted 5 away, plus 5. I got rid of them on the right. So I no longer have any variables. That was the whole goal, was to get rid of the variables on the right, which I just did. Now what? Do I have any like terms left? Yeah, remember, don't forget, numbers with no variables are like terms. So this 8 and this 5 are like terms. There's no negative signs, so the math's pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and write the variable term first. Yeah, you could have written the number first. It doesn't matter. Actually, tell you what, let's write the number first to show you it doesn't matter. So 8 plus 5 is 13. We get another weird answer. And you should all be able to, this is a two-step equation. Oh, shoot, I forgot to tell you. So here's the good news for you if I haven't told you this. Because in every equation, for the most part, even if it's a really difficult equation, you eventually get down to the point where you have a two-step equation. From here on out, this is a two-step equation. If you'll remember, you had a quiz on two-step equations. A lot of you didn't do well on that quiz. A lot of you did, but a lot of you didn't. If you at least get this part down from here on, if you're starting now to understand how to do two-step equations, like where you start, what math you do, I will replace your old quiz grade on the two-step equations with what you do from just here down. So I'm basically going to give you 2 grades for this next quiz. I'm going to give you 1 grade that's like for what we're working on now, the multi-step equations. But I'm also going to give you a grade for two-step equations, which I can use to replace your old grade if you didn't do as well on that one. So the moral of the story is don't quit. Don't give up. If you don't know how to do the first few steps, keep going. Even if this is wrong, like even if you get the wrong stuff as your two-step equation, if you can then solve it from there correctly, even though it's ultimately the wrong answer for the whole problem, if you can solve this moving forward, I will give you 100 for that and I'll replace your other grade. So don't quit. All right, so really quickly, where do we start? Or what do we say for last? Where do we start or what do we say for last? Either however you remember it. We want to start with either the one that's farthest away from the x, or we want to save the x for last. Whichever way you think of it, or if you have a third way of thinking of it, you just need to know I don't start here. I'm not starting here either. I'm getting rid of that to get variable by itself. I do the opposite math. Well, if I do it on one side, I got to do the other. We get a little bit of a weird answer. So we have 35x equals 0. So I know you guys freak out when we have a 0, but 0 is a number. We still have the variable, though. We didn't get rid of the variable this time. So what do I do to get the variable by itself? What do I do to get the variable by itself, though? And if I divide on one side, I have to divide on the other side. Just so happens 0 divided by 35 is still 0. So the final answer is x is 0. And this is different from those other examples because we still had the x left. And the other problems that I said were weird situations, the variables went away. Here, our number went to 0. So the number side went to 0, but we still had the variable. So that's the difference. X equals 0. That's the answer. And the other one, we had either infinite or no solution because we didn't have any variables left anymore. So I know that was a lot. I wanted to make sure I got that on video mainly. The key is understand what like terms are, when you can combine them. They are like terms if they have the same variable or no variable. You can combine them if they are on the same side of the equal sign. If they are not on the same side, then you have to think about getting rid of them on one side so that they are all on the same side. I would expect you to be able to do problems with any problem that has the variables on only one side. So that's what your quiz will be. You still have one more day to practice, but you're having the quiz on Friday, right? And you just have to make it up. It's not a retake. If you're absent, you don't have to go through the retake process. So just make it up and everything. So make sure you practice the ones. I mean, you got another day where you'll have probably at least 45 minutes to practice. So if you really want to make sure you're ready, then practice some before that. I'm gonna start assigning some stuff in the online book or we don't have that. So. But you have this regardless of practice. So. You're gonna come in then at lunch, right?
Yeah.
Good. I want to go back over some with you individually. I think that's always more helpful when I can like spend more time with somebody than 10 minutes. All right. Go to the football. Well, it's a long way away, so maybe don't go to the football game tonight, but tell them good luck. If you want to do activities night, the form I think is due by the 25th, so in a couple of weeks. But you have to have a teacher willing to stay, so you got to find that first before you can do it. It's a team event, so you got to get a team together.
I really like this blanket.
No, not early. Oh, is it really? Yeah, I will, since I don't see you tomorrow, I will. Yeah. I have burritos. I have barbecue chips. I have spearmint. So you know what you want? That's what that's feel like you're missing out. So you feel like you're caught up? Happy birthday! So what do you want? Burritos, Takis, barbecue, chips, Takis? Are you a Taki?
Can I just can I? Can I be $3 for like chips?
No, money means nothing.
Oh, I saw that.
Hey, if money meant something to me, I wouldn't teach. You're welcome. Happy birthday. Anybody else? And.
Why do we celebrate?
Friday? We'll see you on yours. We'll see you. Happy birthday. Some classes will do that. I don't think this class will. It's normally the same classes where people are willing to come to the board and do something. Oh, I gotta stop my recording. If you guys haven't